Today on Henry's Film Corner, my very special guest is Billy Bob Thornton, who's here to discuss, among other subjects, the 10-year anniversary of one of my favorite films of all time, Sling Blade. Also on the show, I will eliminate any excuse to not know who Werner Herzog is, and we will preview his new documentary, Grizzly Man. It's going to be a great show, folks. Stick around. As you may already know, the House of Representatives has managed to earn bipartisan support to raise fines for broadcast indecency from $32,000 to $500,000. That means every time someone with an opinion like myself gets Bush's panties in a twist, they'll be handing out fines of up to $500,000. Fortunately, this network has managed to avoid the censorship buzzer by remaining uncut and commercial-free. But don't think for a second that this makes me any less passionate or frightened about where our country is headed. The real problem with censorship is that most Americans believe it only affects what they see on TV or listen to on Howard Stern. But there's many forms of censorship that are far more concerning to me than the fate of my good friend Bubba the Love Sponge. For example, there's Christian forces who are pushing for the elimination of the theory of evolution in science class to be replaced with only creationism and intelligent design. This is censorship. The very obscure travel routes the president always seems to take to his public appearances, carefully avoiding any sign of a protester, that is censorship. The stories the press chooses to cover, and more importantly, what they choose not to cover without question, is censorship. Like a frightening article I had to search the deep recesses of the internet to find on Christian anti-abortionist and hardcore moralizer Dr. David Hager. Hager's Bush's appointee to the FDA's Reproductive Health Drug Advisory Committee. According to his ex-wife and former writing partner, Hager's a sexually abusive liar, currently preaching a way of life he could never live up to himself. But of course, we know nothing about this shady government official and everything about Paris Hilton. Why? Censorship. By the way, Bush is also asking for $750 million to be given to faith-based organizations to teach abstinence-only sex education, which is an interesting proposal right now, considering CDC studies have shown a dramatic drop in teen pregnancy and STDs among adolescents who attended classes that teach safe sex. Telling Johnny to tie it in a knot and wait for his wedding night is unrealistic, dangerous, ignorant, and censorship. And the fact that Bush also seems unable to mention September 11th without saying the word Iraq in the same sentence is absolutely disgusting, a manipulation of the truth, and without a doubt, censorship. Bottom line, folks, censorship is hideous and un-American. And realizing we may never learn half of what is being kept from us at this very moment is what scares me the most. I'm all for personal responsibility, but seriously, fuck censorship.
Well, I went in there in the house, and I hit Jesse Dixon upside the head with it, knocked him off my mother. I reckon that didn't quite satisfy me. So I hit him again with it in the neck with a sharp edge and just plumb near cut his head off. Killed him.
My guest today is actor and filmmaker Billy Bob Thornton, who stars in Bad News Bears this month and also celebrates the 10-year anniversary of his remarkable film Sling Blade with a 2-DVD collector's edition that features the director's cut of the film. Billy Bob, I'm very happy to have you on the show, man.
Well, thanks. I'm glad to be here.
It's been 10 years since you released Sling Blade, which you wrote and directed and starred in. And since then, you've covered a lot of ground and you've done a lot of really great work. So in the 10 years, with all these films under your belt, how would you rate Sling Blade now?
Well, I think it's probably always going to be right at the top of the list because, you know, I mean, it's kind of like your firstborn or something. I mean, I'd been an actor and writer for, you know, years and years before that, and I'd had some critical success with this movie One False Move that we did, you know, 5 or 6 years before Sling Blade. But Sling Blade's the one that sort of put me over the top, you know, and also we made it for next to nothing. And it's, you know, when it's your own creation, you're usually more proud of it, I think, you know, if it works out. And honestly, I made that movie, I said it at the time and I meant it. I made that movie for a few people. I didn't make it to become some sort of iconic film or anything. I thought it might do okay with the critics, but I thought nobody would see it. So the fact that it became the success that it did, you know, it's like watching your kid, you know, play Little League, and the next thing you know, he's pitching for the Cardinals or something, you know. So I think, yeah, it's probably got the top spot in my heart, I'd say.
It's still one of those films that people watch over and over. I have watched it at least between 8 and 10 times. I've lost count. What do you think is the enduring appeal of the film?
I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that it was an independent film that wasn't it wasn't conventional in any way. I mean, in terms of the structure of the script or the way it was shot or anything else. And yet, it had that sort of little magical quality that some more commercial films have, like Cocoon or The Green Mile or the things like this that have some kind of person, you know, or people at the center of it that create some kind of supernatural goodness or something, maybe in a different way. And also the fact that it was a brand new character. I don't think people had seen anybody quite like that before. The way the guy talks and the way he moves, he became somebody that people kind of knew, you know, and I think everybody in their town had a guy that they remember growing up, whether he walked around tapping on telephone poles or whatever, you know, it was a guy in town that they remember, oh yeah, that's like old Robert Morris or whatever, you know. I think Carl was a guy that he did something that we all want to do, but you can't do that in the real world. It's like he killed somebody. He was in a mental institution. And he gets out and he kills another guy who needed killing. You know what I mean? And I think people, you know, respond to it that way.
You're one of the actors who does what I consider the real job of acting, to disappear into the part, put the ego, you know, throw it out and just disappear into the thing and be that guy. Like in U-Turn, I didn't even know that was you for a while. I'm like,
I didn't even know it was me for a while.
well, and in that is the job, right? We're gone. Yeah. And one of the things that fascinates me is you'll do like the big movie. You'll do the big Friday Night Lights thing. And I'm not putting you down because I like you in those big movies. Then you'll turn around and do something like Crystal. And so what's it like? What's your experience working in the two, you know, kind of massive extremes?
Well, first of all, I think the only big film I've ever done that was in the category of the films that we were sort of just talking about was probably Armageddon.
Yeah.
And, you know, I was told at that time by my people, they said, listen, if you want to maintain a career, you know, you got to be on a bus stop at some point. You know, you can't keep making movies about retarded guys who, like, kill people, you know. And so, you know, I did it, and plus I had a divorce settlement that I needed to take care of, you know, so I needed a little extra money. But the reason I do big movies every now and then is because sometimes I like them and they're better than the independent films I'm looking at. Because independent film, you know, just isn't, it's not inherently a wonderful thing. It's not, it's, in other words, it's not, it's
awful.
Exactly, it's not like a slam dunk that just because it, you know, and I mean, sometimes you'll see an independent film you know, about some guy who lives in a closet, you know, or something, and the whole movie's about a guy who lives in a closet who has one leg and, like, fucks his mother who lives on the roof and shit like that, and after a while you're just like, oh, that's great for 5 minutes, but shit, you know, I got shit like that in my own life I can watch, you know, but all I'm saying is I pick roles that are stories I like and characters I want to play, and I like to keep changing up and everything. Like the guy in Monsters Ball or the guy in The Man Who Wasn't There are not the guy in U-Turn who isn't the guy in Armageddon. You know, I like to keep changing up all the time.
Cool. You've accomplished a lot as an actor and as a director. What advice would you give to a young person coming up trying to achieve what you have?
One of the questions that you're inevitably going to get is, how did you make it? Well, there's not an answer for that, as you know. They don't exist. But I can say if you want to stay, my best advice is to not take any advice creatively. You could take some advice in other ways. I'll put it this way. I never understood when they say, somebody says to me, I'm taking a creative writing course. What the fuck is that? I mean, there's no such thing. There's no such thing as a creative writing course. I don't even believe in acting classes. I never did. I went to them in the beginning. I was in drama in school. I can honestly say that none of that helped me at all. And when I prepare for a role, people say, how do you prepare for a role? Well, I got two things to say. One, it's none of your fucking business how I prepare for it, so I don't talk about it. Yeah, is there a preparation for it? Yeah, preparation is from the time I was born till now. That's the preparation for it. There are some people who have lived life, and their life may be quite eclectic or whatever. They've lived through different phases or whatever, and you use those things as an actor. You just know that's what it's like, you know? And so, yeah, my advice to people coming up is, let's say a young filmmaker, don't try to copy somebody. Don't try to be, because when I was growing up, the idea was to be different. It's like in the arts, it's a bunch of different types of people doing their shit. Now the idea seems to be everybody, let's be the same. And so if you want to get a film made, well, I got to make one that's like Star Wars, or it's like this one or that one. And then let's say a good independent film comes out that hits and makes a lot of money. Well, I'll make a movie about a one-legged grapefruit salesman or whatever. And my advice would be whatever is closest to you, the stuff you know the best. If you grew up in Topeka, Kansas, and your dad ran a gas station, start right there and make a movie about that. Because your best work is always going to be the stuff you know the best. And I would say that's the trick, and that there's no trick.
You're by no means a regular guy, thank goodness. But you strike me as, you know, not a whole lot of, well, really no pretension. Yet you are an A-list actor, and you at least spend some time in Hollywood, California. I don't know where you live all the time, but you're here enough to have a bunch of goons with cameras chasing you around. Mm. What's that like? It seems to me you're showing up for the work, and here's all these, you know, who are these people? I mean, is that a little crazy?
It's the bad part of being well known. You can actually stay out of it, maybe, you know, more than, you know, I don't pop up in a lot of magazines unless I intended to. Every now and then I do, you know, after every divorce, you know, I end up in there. Probably, I got more famous for being married to a famous actress than I was as an actor. It's not so much that way anymore, but I went through, at least at that point, when Angelina and I were married, it was a constant thing. For some reason, they're interested in couples. Yeah. They like it when another famous person screws another famous person on a constant basis for a period of time. Right. They enjoy that very much. I enjoyed it very much too, but I didn't enjoy having people in the bushes, you know. Yeah. And you go out places and they hound you and stuff like that. Yeah. Here's what I do. I may as well live in Sioux City, Iowa, because these days I just keep to myself and.
You work a lot.
And I work a lot.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm either working or with my kids or my friends. That's what I do, and I would recommend that highly to anybody who ever has a camera up their ass. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about this for a second, kind of switching gears. You've just mastered your third album, okay, and so music is at least, well, it's a fairly big chunk of your life.
Yeah, it's really funny because what I have to overcome in the music business, and the music business is, God knows, it's tough enough for anybody, but to sort of compound the problem, I have to get past this, oh, it's just another actor making a record, you know. And sure, there are some actors who make shitty music. There's some musicians who make shitty music.
Thank you.
Who have never been.
I was going to finish the sentence for you.
Who have never been actors. But yet, it's okay for them to turn out a record and nobody says, well, hey, wait a minute, you used to work at a sawmill, how can you make a record, you know? you know, I'm not the greatest singer, songwriter, or musician or anything in the world, but I'm as good as some of them out there, you know, and I love music with all my heart. Always have. And if anybody ever was going to pick up a record of mine, just know that I mean it. It ain't a hobby. You know, it's something I really put myself into. And I'd rather be in the recording studio or playing in front of an audience than almost anything.
Yeah, yeah, me too. Okay, so your third album, you're planning for a fall release?
Yeah, we want to try to put it out, you know, October-ish or something like that. And the record's called Hobo, and we'll try to tour in the fall because I'm kind of leaving that spot open to not do a movie, you know.
If I see the billboard for you up somewhere, I'm showing up.
You got it.
And thanks for showing up at my place here, man. Very cool to have you as a guest.
Thank you very much.
And next up on Typecast, Elvis impersonators give us their take on the indie comedy Elvis Has Left the Building.
I'm looking like the king, feeling like the real thing.
You know, I think they did this pretty good, really. I think, you know, they make the Elvises,
You like
the
it?
impersonators look, you know, kind of funky. It's very entertaining. There's a lot of humorous stuff in there, and it's definitely entertaining. Good escapism.
It's interesting that
We're not into escapism, right?
Right, no, we're not.
You've been doing Elvis since...
Oh, since 1958, I've been doing Elvis, man.
Yeah.
And of course, now I'm 63 years old.
Now, don't give that away. Wait a minute.
I'm
Don't
sorry.
give it away.
Take it off. Take it off. Okay, kind of.
I don't know who the hell I am anymore. My business sucks. Marriage over. I guess that's why I'm back home in Memphis talking to you.
Kevin, have you ever, say, like, prayed to Elvis?
All the time. When I go leave from the house, go to perform in the restaurant, I pray with this coin, the Elvis coin. This one. I told him, please,
That's
Elvis,
neat.
come to help me, give me your voice, give me energy for me, give me make me success the performing.
Been too lonely, too long.
Well, you know, I really feel a real close connection to Elvis in that I come from a place of kind of low self-esteem, but I never felt any more confidence than once I started doing Elvis, which was real scary at the beginning. But once I started doing it, I mean, it has brought me up to a place where I feel very good about myself and that I make so many people happy. I'm doing good in the world because of him.
Elvis is alive.
Did you just say Elvis is alive?
No, I think that woman just said that Elvis is alive, and there's proof.
Every time people, they see me, they say, you think Elvis is dead? I said, do I sound like a dead man? You know, it's funny because they all...
You know, people ask me, I thought you were dead. I say, hey, man, I'm not even sick.
And I said to myself, if he was alive, he wouldn't let his daughter marrying Michael Jackson.
Yeah, there's proof.
Well, that's the proof that he's dead, right? Otherwise, oh my God.
You know what they're doing is they're showing, you know, like kind of the goofy side of the Elvis impersonator world. But yeah, this my philosophy is like, don't take yourself seriously, but take the job seriously.
Yeah.
But you can't, you know, get too serious about, you know, hey, I'm Elvis, you know, it's like, no.
More bite and a little less spark, a little less fight and a little more spark. Close your mouth and open up your heart, baby, satisfied.
He's more recognizable,
Right.
even
Never gonna
us,
die.
you know, dressing
Yeah,
up
never
like
gonna
him,
die,
is
yeah.
more recognizable than anybody that I can think of. It's good to be the king.
Film historians love to refer to the 1970s as the most important decade in modern cinema. They'll tell you how filmmakers like Scorsese, Coppola, and Altman were redefining the rules of film in America. And while it's difficult to argue any of these legends, all of whom played a vital role in advancing the art form, far too often we neglect to recognize our foreign counterparts. During that very pivotal decade in American cinema, an equally important revolution was also taking place in German theaters. And leading the way was a volatile, resolute, brilliant young artist named Werner Herzog.
It's not only my dreams. My belief is that all these dreams are yours as well. And the only distinction between me and you is that I can articulate them.
While Herzog's strange and beautiful films are often overshadowed by the myth that surrounds the man behind the camera, he still remains one of the true pioneers of contemporary cinema. Never relying on traditional elements of storytelling, his works, both fiction and documentary, are a realization of his uncompromising personal vision. Herzog is the definition of independent filmmaker, usually sacrificing any hope of commercial appeal by financing his own bizarre and often devastating stories. His films are perhaps best recognized by their primordial elements. Jungles, rivers, oceans, and deserts play protagonist roles in Herzog classics like Aguirre, The Wrath of God, and Fitzcarraldo. The beauty and danger of those environments are captured with a patience that makes his work unmistakable. But his need to set many of these films in unbearable locations tortured his cast and crew, and on occasion, put people's lives in danger. His passionate and unsympathetic approach to filmmaking is often mistaken for ego or insanity.
I shouldn't make movies anymore. Should go to a lunatic asylum right away.
But his films prove there is a method to his madness. The emotional torment that the Herzog experience demands of his cast exposes their vulnerabilities. He literally exhausts the humanity out of his actors, and you can see it in their performances. Herzog is responsible for some of my favorite films of all time. And titles like Strozek, Land of Darkness, and Nosferatu are now staples in film school curriculums. But Herzog is far from being done. This month, he releases his newest documentary entitled Grizzly Man. Grizzly Man is the tragic story of Timothy Treadwell, a rejected actor who presumed he could live safely among the grizzly bears of the Alaskan wilderness.
He's now moving away from me. I've now proven myself as being able to hold my ground and therefore earning their respect.
Treadwell devoted years of study in what he believed would provide helpful information to protect the bears, but his work was seen by many as an interference with nature. Eventually, both Treadwell and his girlfriend would be devoured by the very animals he hoped to protect. But this film is much more than a simple retelling of those events. Relying on Treadwell's own video footage, Herzog steers this story into unexpected emotional frontiers. He examines the complexity of a man who felt safer among wild animals, far from the dangers that society had presented him.
Hey, thanks for being my friend. This is so good. Does it feel good?
Herzog's urge to tell the Treadwell story may be derived from his ability to relate to a man who felt at home in strange environments and in the eye of adversity.
There are times when my life is on the precipice of death, and that these bears can bite, they can kill, and if I am weak, I go down.
Grizzly Man will get a limited release this month, and I strongly recommend you check it out. Then please take the time to examine the other works of Werner Herzog, a man who should never be overlooked when discussing the true pioneers of film. If you have a foreign director you feel should get some more recognition, or if you just want to bitch to me and complain, you can find me at www.ifctv.com. I look forward to hearing from you. August is a great month for film with several excellent indies hitting theaters, including Broken Flowers, the newest feature from Jim Jarmusch. Broken Flowers stars Bill Murray in an unusually dramatic performance as an aging Don Juan who learns he has a son. When forced to investigate which one of his former lovers might be the mother, Don embarks on a heartfelt and often hilarious journey through his past. Great film. Check that one out. Also worth mentioning is the long overdue release of My Left Foot on DVD. This classic Jim Sheridan film stars Daniel Day-Lewis in his Oscar-winning portrayal of Christy Brown, a quadriplegic born to a very poor Irish family. We watch Christy battle with tremendous courage, life's simple physical tasks, and complex psychological pains as he also develops into a brilliant painter, poet, and author. These are two excellent films that I insist you check out this month. And thank you as always for watching us. We'll see you next time.